where's the soap? Dee 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 dee. Ba ba da 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 da. Oof, that's hot. Dee 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 dee. So where did I put the loofah? Dee. Oh, that's not the loofah. Must be the cold weather. Da da dee 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 dee.
Swell. You'll be great.
He was an absolute wonderful man.
He was a very, very talented man with many strings to his bow.
Everything's coming up roses.
Made everyone laugh, an entertainer, and very, very caring.
To me, he was a Cumbrian. I should say Cumbrian.
He was the superstar of his day. In Carlisle especially, everyone knew who Donald Scott was.
Honey, everything's coming up roses and daffodils.
BBC Radio Cumbria remembers one of the county's best-loved sons.
It was always laughter.
Well, when I think of Donald, I just think of one word, and that's life.
Donald Scott, Life and Laughter.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the show. And I hope you're going to spend the next hour or so with me and my kind of humour, which is rather broad and very Carlisle.
Quite
but
broad.
I hope you'll enjoy it.
He
And
was.
a little later on,
He was rather
I'll be
portly,
introducing
lost
the
his
great
hair.
Bald-headed, well-built.
Always very smart. Always smart.
Who you would pass in the street and not look at twice, but once you'd seen him on the stage or heard him on the radio, you would never forget.
Do you know who I am?
Bride of Frankenstein?
You would see Donald, his face would light up.
He had such a huge smile on him.
He was always smiling, even when he was young. Smiley Donald with his
Glasses?
With his glasses.
That was almost his trademark, his glasses.
Eric Morecambe type.
And always had a ready smile.
On the front page you would see me with my cheeky grin. I thought I was dead popular, but there's nought else to put in.
His eyes just glistened. When he walks into a room, you know, boy, that man had walked into the room.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to entertain you in the only way I know. I want to make you smile, but I'd rather make you laugh. So just sit back and then enjoy the show.
He loved being on the stage. He just loved entertaining, making people laugh.
So let me entertain you.
That was Donald. Donald was just a ray of sunshine.
I hope I'll entertain you pretty well. Yes, let me entertain you. You might as well relax. We've got your money and the doors are all shut tight.
Well, of course, there were so many sides to Donald's entertainment. You know, some people remember the Gilbert and Sullivan and the pantomime and then the concerts and the comedy shows. But I suppose latterly, people always say, "Oh, over the garden wall."
Maggie, are you there? Maggie, are you there? I've just got that.
Oh, Auntie Gladys.
I'm one out. My chest's gonna go.
I'm Elizabeth, and I am Donald's cousin. I think he was born to do what he did, to be honest with you, you know. And I mean, self-taught. Well, we used to go to piano lessons, but half the time he was dallying off on his own, playing what he wanted to, you know. Donald, obviously. But no, I think he was a natural, and he was born to do what he did.
I like this showbiz. I love showbiz. I wish I was in it.
And comedy seemed to take to the fore, but Donald had an exceptionally good baritone voice. And he entered the festivals and came out quite well. He had a very, very nice baritone voice.
I've grown accustomed to her face. It almost makes the day begin.
He genuinely liked people. He liked people. And he seemed to enjoy wanting to make people happy. And I could actually stand back and watch them respond to Donald. with the way he was with them.
He was a very, very, very good mixer with people. You know, he fitted in with, he could adjust himself to any bit. And he wasn't big-headed or anything. He was just a nice guy to talk to, an interesting fellow.
What I loved about Donald was he could identify with the common man or woman.
Oh, I know,
He came from a working class background, and he could see the greatness in ordinary people, the humour, the warmth, the love. So whilst he mocked people, whilst he took the mickey out of people, but he never mocked them. And it was that kind of love of people that engaged me. I was blown away by his depth.
I am David Kendrew.
Very nice guy.
I became aware of Donald Scott in about 1974 when the Scott family moved to live opposite my family home in Aglenby Street, Carlisle. Donald sort of related his humour to the particular individual, so he knew the things that amused me and he could sort of latch on to that, and so there was that shared humour. And he had that great ability, I think, to develop his humour and meet the situation and the person that he was with at the time.
Hiya, all right, No, seriously, like, I'm gonna direct these plays, like. Man, I'm not used with working with amateurs, like, but I'm gonna direct them in this play that between you and me, I've had to rewrite the lot.
What Donald could do was tune into your sense of the absurd and make it very personal to you. And yet with somebody else, he would show another side, another kind of humour. And I would see him operate on different levels, but it was genuine on the different levels. He just knew how to, make you laugh.
I remember when I was ill, and he used to come into the hospital and see me about twice a week. I used to have the ward in stitches, and the patients after he'd left used to say, "When's he coming back? It's doing me more good than the tablets."
Well, she says, I'm afraid you can't see him. He's away down to the theatre. I said, the theatre, they've everything for them now.
I used to look forward to him coming, and I didn't get to see him because he was entertaining everybody else in the ward,
I said, what's on this week, Charlie Brown?
If the NHS could ever have got Donald's laughter on tape and just gave it once a day to all the patients, there'd be lots less worried people in hospital.
Whenever I think of Donald, I just want to smile.
Though your heart is aching.
It was always laughter.
Smile even though it's breaking.
If you rang up and he answered the phone, it was like Buckingham Palace, and it always sounded like he was the butler or something. And then it just suddenly burst into one of his laughs, that rich laugh that he had.
If you smile.
Donald's laugh was a rib tickler. It sort of hit you like a wave. And you couldn't help laughing at his laughing.
His laugh was just so infectious.
Very infectious.
His laugh was infectious. I mean, it was very, very hearty. It was going for quite some time.
Embarrassing. He used to laugh out so loud,
It was a full throttled laugh when he saw something that really made him laugh.
He used to come out with his raucous laugh, But he used to smittle everybody with it. Once he started, everybody else did.
That's the time.
Well, he used to walk into the room and used to brighten the day up. When he walked in, let's have a laugh.
If you were sort of anywhere in Carlisle and you heard laughter, you knew. If you went round the corner, he would be involved. It would be him. And it just set you off laughing.
Just smile.
It was just a bundle of fun.
That was my dad, and that's what he could do to people. He could just get people laughing like that.
Before he went on stage, he would never sit down in a pair of trousers. Norman would always iron his trousers before he went on stage, and he'd stand in his boxers ready to go on. Once Norma ironed his trousers at the last minute, he would put them on and then he'd be ready to go on stage.
He would be nervous. You could tell he was sort of nervous. He was sort of walking up and down, you know, and he was going, "You're all right, aren't you?" I said, "Yes." And I said, "It's going to be good, it's going to be okay. Take 3 deep breaths from the pit of the stomach." And I said, "It's going to be okay." But he was still smiling. And then the introduction would come, and I'd say, "Get out there, boy, break a leg." And off he would go.
You know when the hairs go up on your arms and you just feel an overwhelming sense of love, thinking, that's my dad, that's my dad. You know, it's weird in life, isn't it? You go when you're a small child and you kind of think, wow, yeah, that's my dad. And then you get to your teenage years and you maybe get a bit embarrassed about your mum and dad. And then suddenly you get into your 20s and your 30s and you kind of think, wow, I'm so proud. I'm so proud. I know that man. I'm a lucky one here. I really know that man.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's lovely to be here at the West Walls Theatre.
I'm John McGuinness, rapidly aging John McGuinness, actually.
Yes, he's getting on a bit.
And I was very closely associated with Donald Scott in so much as I produced his stage shows and also co-wrote his scripts for the stage show and his BBC Radio Carlisle series.
But here we are again, and you're going to have 2 hours of gentle humour. That'll be nice for you, won't it? 2 hours of gentle humour. And I thought I'd start quietly by looking at the newspapers.
We met for the stage shows an hour and a half before actually Donald went on stage, and we would try and keep it as topical as we could. Donald was the observational one. Donald saw all the potential in the local characters, and so we started with a blank piece of paper, and we developed these characters that he did the voices for.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I must tell you about one of my favourite people, and it's my barber, and they call him George, and he's got
He was very good at imitating people.
And he's the most marvellous,
you know, different characters.
Hi, Donald. All right, son. Sit down, son. I just said this morning I wouldn't be surprised if Donald doesn't come in this morning.
When we were working in the West Walls Theatre, what many people don't know is there's a microphone at the top of the auditorium stairs, so as the audience are coming in, it's piped through to the dressing room, so he could actually hear when certain people were in the audience. He'd go, "Oh, Mrs. Smith's in tonight," or "Joe Bloggs is in tonight," because I've just heard them. And then he could actually think how he was going to wind them into the show. He would very sneakily have a look through the curtains to see who was in on a certain night.
The managing director's in tonight. That's me finished.
You've got to remember, he was on stage from 7:30 until 10 o'clock with only a 15-minute interval. It's a heck of a lot of material to remember. His recall was absolutely phenomenal, really.
Gonna have a lie down and my dose of Viagra because the second half's quite hard. It really is. No, it's very hard, the second bit. So we'll see you in about 20 minutes.
He would go great, absolutely great. The arms would go up in the air. Oh, he was so relaxed, going around thanking everyone and hugging them. Yeah.
He would be elated, particularly if it went well. He would just stand and give me a cuddle for about 2 minutes and say, "It's working, John, it's working, it's absolutely fantastic." He said, "Do you know, John, the audience are great," but he said, "Do you think they ever realise that we work for 6 months on these scripts?" He says, I sometimes think we make it up in the car coming to the theatre."
This is the story of Rindy Seller, The story opens where Rindy Seller, sitting by the fire, eyeing her, cries out. She was sinking blick, because you see the Sugley Isters had gone to the Gall and left Rindy Seller to fiend the Clire out. And she said, what the hippin' fleck am I going to do?
Everyone who has seen Donald perform as a dame in a pantomime will know that he was truly, truly brilliant.
There is nothing like a dame, nothing in the world. There is nothing you can name that is anything like a dame.
I'm David McNeil. I've been friends with the great Donald Scott since I was about 15 years old. We've worked together professionally, amateur theatre.
I'm not used with working with amateurs.
We've laughed, we've cried. He would always walk into a rehearsal room, and he was a true gent. He'd go around every member of the company, speak to them, whatever job they were in, whatever part, and he'd go in his dressing room, and then he'd come out transformed into the Baroness or whatever, and then crook back in Jack and the Beanstalk or whatever.
Now you're probably wondering who this shy, retiring little flower is. Well, my name is Gladys, and I'm Alderman Fitzwarren's cook. And to look at me, you wouldn't think I was on the pension, would you? Who said yes?
He's an absolute swine, in so much as with Panto, he goes for every laugh he can get.
Oh, and we've a wonderful birthday. Mary Smith. She's 111. Give her a round of applause. Oh, sorry, I've got it wrong. Mary Smith is ill.
When I took over the Sands Panto in 2000, the first thing I said was I would want Donald to come in and play Ugly Sister to start with.
I've never seen anyone so ugly in all my life. Isn't she ugly, boys? Oh, yes, she is.
But we couldn't find somebody that I was comfortable him playing opposite as Ugly Sister, because it's a very unique relationship. So I wrote the part of the Baroness for Donald, and that's the first time he ever used the line that I wrote for him, I don't like children.
I don't like children.
And that became his catchphrase, whether he was in Panto or if he saw people in the street, it became a really good catchphrase. I don't like children.
And I don't like children.
Donald did appear in pantomime in Sunderland and in Weymouth and Blackburn as well. People forget that he was able to take his type of comedy to other parts of the country and be totally successful. He would pick up the Dorset accent when he went down to Weymouth absolutely within seconds, and so he could relate to the local audience immediately.
Be out of this contraption. No! Oh, you're too fat!
A little secret, many times he would play Dame with his trousers on underneath, and he wore a lot of black polo-neck sweaters, and if he could, he'd keep his sweater on underneath his costume as well. Now, whether that was for the quick exit at the end.
Donald Scott, Life and Laughter, on BBC Radio Cumbria.
My name's Bob Heslop. I've known Donald for approximately 60 years. Met him when he was about 16, when he was painting outside of the cooperative at Newtown Road, Carlisle. And we became very close friends over a long period.
Oh, I don't believe it. I've put my foot in the bucket.
And got to know each other very, very well.
Wish I'd never bothered.
In 1978, Donald took over the job which I'd packed in at Border Television.
This is Border Television, broadcasting to Cumbria, South Scotland, the Isle of Man...
And he was painting the scenery, Mr. and Mrs. Had to be all lined with this non-sticking lino. It was like lino and marble set. But you'd marble the floor each time because the floor had to come up for certain other things. You know, once they'd done Mr. and Mrs. to do something else. And that was one of the big jobs.
Good morning, Radio Carlisle.
Donald was contracted by the BBC Radio Carlisle to do a Sunday morning programme in which he was doing songs at the piano requests. Mike Gibbons, the then programme organiser, we said, by the way, we've written a radio script. Would you have a look at it, Mike? We think it's worth at least a pilot programme. So Mike took all this paper away, came back and said, I like it. I think it's got potential. So we said, are you going to give us a pilot programme then and see what the public reaction is? He said, no. Come back with another 5 and I'll give you a series of 6 programmes. So after we recovered, we set to work with the pencil and paper, and the rest is history.
And now the first of a new series of 6 programmes featuring one of Carlisle's local artists, Donald Scott in concert.
The Donald Scott Show radio series went out at 11:15 every Sunday morning.
Things look swell, things look great, gonna have the whole world on a plate.
My name is Alan Eyre. I was working as a cracker packer in Carr's biscuit factory, and I heard his radio shows on, I think it was Radio Carlisle. This was where he was playing the great characters, the Scotts, the Dameless Smythes. And what amazed me about these shows was these were the people I was working with in Carr's. They brought to life my working day.
Hey, carry on talking for a minute. See who's come out of her gate. Dirty Doris from number 6. I say, you see that coat she's got on? It's the one I sent for the Radio Carlisle charity appeal.
I would rush home and say to my mum and dad, have you heard Donald Scott on the radio? And they'd been listening to him. And it was just, it kind of made my work in life more bearable.
Now, I must tell you at this stage that all the characters are fictitious. They might be based on 1 or 2 people I know, but they are fictitious. Hey, Rainey, I'm just looking at the paper, the Sun.
Well, I hope you're not looking at page 3.
No, your father's pinched that.
The character was actually based on a mutual friend's mother from Denton Home, and it was perfect. It was just her to a T. And Rena used to say, oh, I was on the radio again today, meaning Donald was. And she was just so proud that she was the star of his programme.
Now it's my great pleasure to introduce my guest, the beautiful, delightful Patricia Clark.
Thank you very much, Donald. It's a great honour to be on the show.
We've been singing together for many years, haven't we?
Yes.
WIs. And, of course, all the marvellous Gilbert and Sullivan shows
yes,
that we've been in together.
Very happy times, haven't we?
Great fun.
I remember when the bread strike was on, and I had to come in and kneel beside you with a red rose.
Yes.
And look so longingly.
Pathos it was.
And do you remember what she said to me?
Yes, I do. I said, did you manage to get a laugh today? Well, she had to sing a very dramatic song.
I did, yes. I just couldn't remember the first word, never mind the song.
When the series was over, people would stop us both in the street and say, when are you going to do another one?
I'm John Myers, and I first came across the great Donald Scott when I was a continuity announcer at Border Television. And he was always doing the painting for all the scenery and the sets and things like that.
Of course, we appeared together.
When I had a Sunday show at Red Rose, I went to him and I said, Donald, I need just a daft character. I like characters. Would you be the cleaner? And so we started Gladys May, the cleaning character.
Oh, I do like listening to what you say. You make me laugh.
Oh, that's nice. Don't say that. She'll want a new handbag.
I've got a lovely handbag. Yeah, you'll come and see us when we do our road shows, Margaret. You'll see me handbag.
He'd come on with his Gladys May, larger than life, never offensive, but just a very funny man. And I would laugh, and I'm trying to host the show, and I'm laughing as much as anyone else.
What do you find in a haunted house?
Haunted house.
Now listen.
I was the sort of Morecambe and Wise, I was the only Wise. I always knew who the star was, and the star was not me. I was just linking it.
Ghosts and
Ghoulie?
Yes! So it's Yvonne Ghoulie? Ghoulie what?
Ghoulie Gonga.
He was an artist at his very best when he was delivering the line, and he could deliver a line better than anyone, really.
Look, we must pull ourselves together, John. Look, we won't be asked back next week.
You're right, love. Chris Evert.
Yes.
I'm Jane Porter, a great big friend of Donald's, and also performed in his shows. I went down a number of times to Radio Red Rose, Preston, with Donald and Norma, and to see John and to see how it all worked. I mean, when he was doing this character of Auntie Gladys, yes, he did sound like a woman.
He's away now. We've lost him, Mary. He's under the control.
Gladys, you get more sense out of a woman. You tell me.
There was one time when we went down, they'd invited 2 or 3 of the listeners into the studio, and seeing their faces when they saw Donald, because when John Myers said, "This is Auntie Gladys, by the way," and they went, "It's a man." They were absolutely taken back.
What's the capital of England?
Great Britain.
We used to get the callers on the air with the John and Gladys show, and I think that Donald was at his best when he could take a caller and he could take them along to this fantasy world of Donald's life as Gladys May, and he could turn it into comedy gold. And it was that I think just allowed Donald to become more of the star he was.
Who played the leading role in Gandhi?
Gandhi?
Yeah.
That's a comic.
No, Gandhi, not Dandy.
I went off to do other things, and Donald then came back to Carlisle, and he started doing stuff for CFM, and he started doing more stuff on the TV, and he got involved with other media as well. And then following that, of course, he was back on Radio Cumbria, so you could say he went full circle.
Donald at lunchtime.
He rang me and said that he was going to do Radio Cumbria.
Donald Scott on BBC Radio Cumbria.
And he said, it's on a Sunday, Jane. He said, listen if you can,
Things look swell, things look great. Gonna have the whole world on a plate. Starting here, starting now. Honey, everything's coming up roses.
My guest on the show today is Clarissa Dixon, right?
And it's Danny LaRue.
I can't follow that.
Mr. Derek Beatty. Derek, welcome to Donald at Lunchtime.
Donald, it's great to see you.
Everything's coming up sunshine and daffodils. Everything's coming up roses for me and for you.
That's right. As it goes, now just pull it in. That's it. And
Pardon?
in fact, what you can do is pull it in quite a bit.
What did you say?
Donald could get away with most things because he was a likeable guy, a very funny man, and he liked other people.
You've actually got a nice crusty bottom, Donald.
Pardon? I know, just the way I was standing.
Donald was very mischievous and had that tremendous twinkle in his eye when he used to sort of tell his stories, but he was never malicious, and he was always very sympathetic in his humour towards people.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, my favourite character of all is Jobby the farmer. And he's a lovely fella, and he walks like that,
We created this character called Jobby.
And he always says, "Does you think he's going to hood up?"
Didn't come from anywhere other than out by, wherever that is.
He said, "I haven't been over good."
We used to ring each other up, and sounds stupid, I suppose, really. But I would talk in a jobby language, and Donald would talk in a jobby language, and he would say things like, "It's all right, John, it's got the hay in it." And I'll say, "No, it's busy milking, get off the phone." And there was this particular time, he was about to open some garden fete somewhere, and the local vicar had a name, John, the same as me. Now, the vicar had got on the phone to confirm the time. Norma had apparently shouted to Donald, "John's on the phone." He didn't know it was the vicar, he thought it was me. Came to the phone and said, "What does the one know? I've got my hand halfway up a cow's bottom."
It was an awful lot for the ladies, you know. And this dad's sitting having his breakfast, and his wife comes out, she gives him secoscope. He says, "What was that for?" She says, "You've got another woman." He says, "I haven't." She says, "You have." She says, "I've seen it. A bit of paper in your pocket. Margarita, 3:30. He says, "Get away. That was the last race at Haydock." Oh, she says, "I'm sorry I misjudged you." Says, "That was the name of the horse. I wouldn't do such a thing." She says, "I'm sorry I misjudged you." Just at that minute the phone went. She came back, she gave him another scoff. He says, "What's that for?" She says, "Your horse on the phone."
Donald loved to be liked. He just liked to be a person everybody loved and liked.
Well, if you walk down the street with Donald, everybody would be stopping and saying, "Hello, Donald, hello, Donald," and they'd all thought that he was their best friend. Yeah, he was known to everybody.
He would be so amazed that people felt so much about him. He really was so humble. He could not often believe it, that people would want to talk to him or chat to him. Or he really was quite a humble man.
Excuse me, I'm from Radio Cumbria. Can I ask you a very quick question? Do you know who this man is? Or was? Remember his name?
Entertainer, I can't think of his name.
Oh, yes.
Yes, from Radio Cumbria, singer and entertainer.
Yeah. Donald Scott. Donald Scott.
He was famous for his comedy, his pantomimes.
Being the compere at his wife's fashion show and taking the mic.
Fantastic. Do you remember him?
No, we're too young.
He did pantomimes quite a lot. That's the thing. He was always the dame
In the pantomimes. And over the garden wall, over the garden wall with the boobs going up. I hope you're not recording that.
Donald Scott, does that name mean anything?
No, because that new for you.
We'll listen to him every week. It goes down as far as Liverpool, you know. Donald who? Oh, Donald Scott. Oh, I listen to him every week, here in Blackpool. Oh, Donald Scott is very refined, isn't he? Donald Scott, I used to work with him at the Co-op, He was only a painter. He reminds me of the Tower. Fine and upstanding. I remember Donald Pierce. He used to sing in a shady new bar. But they'll be about the same age, aren't they?
It was always the same all the time. Nothing went to his head or anything like that. He was always the same decent, lovely person.
He didn't believe in his own talents. And if you ask anybody who's worked with him, he always doubted. He doubted his comedy, he doubted everything.
I must say, we got a lovely write-up for the show the other night in the Evening News. We're on page 2 next to the deaths.
If he got a bad crit or something like that, of course he would get hurt. Yes, of course he did. He'd say, "Gosh, was I that bad?" And I said, "Well, yes, but it was maybe just their opinion." I would sort of go over it that way, which it is one person's opinion, isn't it? If somebody didn't like him or if he got a bad crit in the paper.
He was very easily hurt. Somebody criticised him, or he was easily hurt.
What I used to say to Donald was, you're not going to please all the people all of the time. And if you stick yourself up there in the public eye on a pedestal, you've got to be prepared to accept the criticism. I was the hard guy between the two, really, but I think it was what he needed to know. And as long as he felt that he had people behind him, and his family, Norma and his kids, were very, very important to him. and they provided me with tremendous support, like I did. Sometimes he called me a bit of a hard nut, but it was all done for the right reasons, I hope.
I think, God love him, he didn't like not to be liked. And I used to say to him, Donald, you can't have everybody doesn't like us, because we'd come off the stage in when we were together, and he'd overhear somebody say, well, that one's a good, and he used to get upset. I says, Donald, don't. I said, Donald, don't worry about it. Were you happy? Yes, I was happy. That's all that matters, But he would never change. He was always the same, always the same. I always wanted to know if he was all right. And if I said to him, you were terrible tonight, Donald, he would take it from me. Oh, what did I do wrong? I said, only joking. But he was a softie, big softie.
Donald Scott, Life and Laughter, on BBC Radio Cumbria.
I'm Norma and I was Donald's wife.
Donald was at his happiest when he was with Norma. They were a couple that adored each other from childhood sweethearts.
I just couldn't imagine that he would want to go out with me, and he obviously felt the same. So it was very much a friendship thing, and then it developed, and that was lovely.
I can remember going into Carlisle on the bus, and the bus stopped outside the ABC picture house, and there was Norma standing, and then along came Donald, and they were on a date. This was before I put two and two together, and I said, they're going. They went into the pictures. I would love to have sat behind them as to what comments he was making about the film, whatever it was. Because knowing him, he would be making some comment.
Then he got married, and him and Norma worked together absolutely splendidly,
They really were a team, and I always thought of them together. It was always Donald and Norma.
Their relationship was beautiful to watch, and they were hand in hand, and they went everywhere together. And the boys brought him lots of happiness, and the grandchildren brought happiness.
Our eldest son, who's in Thailand, Donald and he could just have eye contact of something of the ridiculous, and could laugh at but cover it up, and they were very much together on that. Jamie, our second son, he just looks like Donald. When he comes on the phone, I feel it's Donald speaking to me on the phone. He sounds just like Donald. And they were very close too. Edward, the young one, he's got Donald's sensitivity. Donald was very loving with them all, and he would give them big bear hugs all the time. And it wasn't an embarrassment to them because they wanted to do it back. Now with our grandchildren, they just adored him because he was this larger-than-life character. He would give them hugs, and he would get on the computer and speak to one of our granddaughters, Becky, and she had lots of pictures of Carlisle. Oh, he said, that's so-and-so, Becky, that's so-and-so. And she said it was just fascinating to talk to him. And she said, I'm just so sorry he's gone because with so much to look forward to with him. And that goes for her sister as well, Holly.
He was actually really shy.
Deceptively shy.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't know him as, in the way that everybody else knows him as the showman. I mean, obviously we've seen parts of that, but we just know him as our granddad. And he was shy and he was dignified.
He was just loving, wasn't he?
Private and loving.
Yeah.
Very respectful, funny, just a family man, just loving and happy, full of life.
I'm Jamie Scott. I'm Dad's second child. I was born in June 1968. My dad was the quiet man. I remember when he'd been over to the Freemans in Newcastle. He'd had open heart surgery, and I'd gone over to stay with him for a fortnight or something after he'd come back. I mean, and don't get us wrong, I wasn't looking after him. I mean, my dad never needed looking after, but I kind of think he needed just a buddy. He needed a mate, I think, with him. So we'd spend a lot of time just walking down the end of the path where he lives and down to the quarry. Not saying a great deal, just being, just holding each other's hand. Just holding each other's hand and just kind of being. Or, you know, if I'd gone up to spend time with mum and dad, just sitting with my dad having a whiskey and just saying no to. But, you know, it's what I'm like at home, and it's what Dad was like at home. You know, sometimes when you are with people, sometimes it is a performance. But then when you shut your door and you get your jimmies on and you're with family, you can truly be yourself. And we just kind of sit and hold hands and just have a glass of whiskey, saying out, but just be. And I don't know. To me, that was my dad. Yeah.
He did have his serious side. He loved playing the organ.
Loved to go and hear a wonderful organist. Would maybe go to London and hear a recital and things like that. He loved that more than anything.
When he was in the church playing the organ, he was just, sort of in a different world. But then when he got onto his piano, boy, could he make a piano talk. He was fabulous, and he didn't need a music score.
'Twas on a Monday morning, the gas man came to call. I couldn't turn the tap, I wasn't getting gas at all. He ripped up all the skirting boards to try to find the main, and I had to get a carpenter to put them back again.
Later on started playing the piano at the Derwentwater Hotel near Keswick, which he loved. Songs from the shows, Ivan Novello, easy on the ear music.
George Gershwin and Noel Coward, evergreen sort of old tunes.
He had a real soft spot for the Salvation Army, brass bands like the Grindthorpe, Collingwood band, stuff like that.
Forget Me Not, and it was a favourite of Donald's mum, Auntie Anne's. And Forever and Ever. Forever and ever, my heart will be true. We both joined the Light Operatic Society, which was absolutely fantastic. South Pacific was the main one that I was in. I took the lead in South Pacific. Donald had the comedy role, of course. Our voices blended pretty well, so it was quite easy to choose songs because we were both quite adaptable, you know. I do miss it, singing with Donald, but I've got the little records I can play when I'm feeling a bit down, you know.
If you can dream of those you love, let me take your hand. I can understand. I love you truly. I love you truly. Oh.
If You Can't Dream, it was a song, a melody, that my ex-husband and Donald put together many years ago, 1960-ish. We took it to London to see if there was any joy getting it recorded, being written by ourselves. And there was no joy anyway, but we recorded it anyway at Newcastle, just for posterity, really. It didn't take that long to take, but we had to, do it a few times before he was happy, this chap. And then he printed out about half a dozen for us. I can't remember how much it cost, but printed off about half a dozen copies, which were on 45s, which really, they're not really any good now. They've got to be put onto CD, but it was an experience at such a young age, It was good, it was good.
He liked to create and do things, and he couldn't sit still for 5 minutes.
It's wonderful
wonderful.
It's marvelous.
That's marvellous.
You should care for me.
He was always thinking of something and being on the go, and if he was bored or if I was out shopping and I came back in, he would suddenly decide to paint a picture. Get it done in no time, up there on the wall, and it was there. And we both loved things like that, and that was just the way he was. No, he hadn't an idle bone in his body. He was just on the go the whole time.
Oh, that's marvellous. You've done a wonderful job.
In one of his shows, he sang the Old Rugged Cross. And as he was singing it, he drew the Old Rugged Cross, and then he would hand it out to a member of the audience.
I asked if he would decorate my living room, and he said yes, so I finished it. And he said, do you know what would be nice? He said, a mural on your chimney breast. I said, oh, what? He said, I've only daft none. He said, a mural on your wall. I said, yeah, that would be lovely. And it was on there to the day I left.
I will remember Donald for doing the mural in my son's bedroom of Thomas the Tank Engine, which was brilliant.
Designing, he designed my wedding dress. I drew a picture of what and I told him what I would really like. And he drew it, and I actually sent it away to Manchester, and they made a pattern of the drawing.
People were just amazed that he was such a brilliant painter. He did a mural in the Church of Scotland, and people used to say, who did that? Donald Scott. Don't be so silly. How could Donald Scott? He's a comedian. Actually, he's a brilliant artist.
And are you enjoying being in Carlisle?
Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah,
it's a delightful city.
But it's lovely.
It's cold.
He was very much Carlisle, and I mean, at the time he died, the newspaper headlines talked about Mr. Carlisle, and so I think he saw that really as being part of his life, that Carlisle had been his life, the people of Carlisle had been his life, and had provided him with so much friendship, but also out of which developed all his humour.
Hey, Marjorie! I don't have to walk, Only did for me holidays. You won't be having holiday this year, with the flower burdens. Or to different fathers.
It was the way he knew how Carlisle people sort of thought, and how he was able to get that over in words and in his faces and in his mannerisms.
Hey, how much is hemorrhoid cream? Oh, it's gone up.
He knew the characters of Carlisle, and he knew what Cumbrians were about, and he just pulled out things, and he said things we wouldn't dare say, and he said things about areas of the town that maybe we think, but he says in such a funny way that nobody was offended by it.
Deep within the bowels of the Civic Centre, every month there meets a secret society. Councillors meet and form a circle, and they throw their keys into the middle. No, it isn't Lowry Hill.
For Donald, when we talk about Mr. Carlisle, I think we're talking about a period when Carlisle was post-war, when people did know each other and probably valued each other's friendships and communities. It's Mr. Carlisle of a particular age. Things have moved on. People are different now. The observational humour, yeah, it's still relevant in comedy, but it's sharper, it's crueler probably. That is the fairest thing to say. And Donald was never cruel. So, yeah, Mr. Carlisle, but of an era.
He was doing a lot of observational comedy long before Peter Kay was doing observational comedy. And I'm quite convinced that had we not lived where we do, and had he been prepared to push himself out and leave his family and his Carlisle connections, he could have made it nationally. Of that I'm absolutely sure. I pushed him once. I said, let's go down to London. Let's knock on a few agents' doors and see what's happening. He said, nah, not really, John. I'm quite happy doing what I'm doing. And that has a lot to be said, I think, in that he He loved his local environment, he loved his family, and he wasn't prepared to seek stardom for the sake of it.
Job taking folk round Carlisle, but I don't show them all the old-fashioned things. Like the cathedral, we want to see. Well, it's more, it would be all right if it was papered or something. And the castle, I mean, we want to see blooming old castle. And there's Adrian's Well. There's Adrian's Well, we want to see that. I mean, it's just a well, eh?
I have always billed him as King of Comedy, or Carlisle's King of Comedy. If it had to have something on his headstone, that's what I would put. Yes, he is Mr. Carlisle, but, you know, Mr. Carlisle, he could be sitting on a park bench or doing anything. But I think to be known as Carlisle's King of Comedy, I think he's just the ultimate tribute.
I think had he had different breaks early in life, had he had more confidence early in life, I think Donald, with the right direction, could have become a national star. He didn't, but it made him a bigger star of Carlisle. He was Mr. Carlisle. He was our big national star. It was nice to have that person who had that national star quality about him, but was ours. He was Carlisle, and that's what we've lost, because there's nobody come along to replace him. Nobody will come along to replace him, because times have changed. So for those who knew him, for those who listened to him, for those who laughed along with Donald, that's the memories that we'll carry for the rest of our days, and it won't happen again.
We all know that Don was a performer, and he performed at Sands, the West Worsted, and many others. And what a good house he's got today! The balcony is full the lot. He has pulled the audience in. Of course he has, because he was well loved, he was popular, and people are here to say thank you.
When I think of Donald, I think only of life. A life that was lived in all its fullness. From the numbers here today, and from the many cards and letters that Norma and the family have received, it was clearly a life that touched so many people. I spoke at Donald's Thanksgiving service at St Cuthbert's Church, and so therefore felt a responsibility, because whilst I had my own memories of Donald, I realised that on that occasion I would be speaking for what turned out to be hundreds of people.
It was a wonderful service, and it wasn't just me that planned it, it was all of us together, putting our feelings into it, the way Donald would have liked it. And it had to be about him, and fun, and I think we managed to pull that one off.
When you look back at his funeral, how did he ever imagine that it would be a quiet affair, wasn't it? It was the biggest funeral I think I've ever been to. And he would have been looking down saying, do you know what, I didn't think they'd turn up.
You know him that lives on the corner of Grey Street and that? You won't see him again. You will not see. You definitely will not see. Sat down to watch Look Around. Down he went. Thought he'd do out to escape that.
Somewhere in a cupboard there's his Gladys tops and his wigs, and I'm sure Norma will treasure those forever. And one day I'd love to think that those, and even the wall, would maybe go into Tully House as a living reminder of Carlisle's heritage, because that wall was around for many, many years, and we carried it on stage, and it was falling apart really, and from the front it looked nice, but it was a scraggy mess, and it was dumped in the back of his car. But you know what, it would be nice maybe to have it in Tully House or somewhere as just, you know, living history, isn't it? Because it pleased a lot of people.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've been an absolutely marvellous audience. Every night we've said, oh, we can't get a better audience than that. But tonight you've been absolutely smashing. Thank you so much. And I'd like to say my thanks to you. For all you mean to me, my thanks to you. For every memory, my thanks to you. My thanks for everything we used to share, for all the joy you bring when you are there. These foolish words of mine could never say how slow the hands of time when you're away. As years go rolling by, my whole life through, I give my love and all my thanks to you.
I think Donald would like to be remembered for what he was, a very talented artist, entertainer and musician. For being a person who had quite a lot of talent, though he would never say that himself.
A good entertainer, a friendly, a good party host, which he was.
A jolly bloke, with serious moments, with serious times. That's my Donald.
He brought a bit of sunshine into the greyness of life, and I think that he'll be remembered by the people of Carlisle as someone they feel quite proud about, someone they actually think did well.
When I think of all the people that he's given a lot of joy to, a lot of laughter to, in the whole of Cumbria and Carlisle, there will never, ever be another Donald Scott.
He was a great guy. He was a great lad, and very, very, very talented. I can't speak too highly of him.
He made people happy. That's the thing that I like about Donald. I wish I could make people as happy as that.
He was such a genuinely nice guy in a world of celebrity. He had such a gift for making people laugh, putting a smile on people's faces. When you mention the name Donald Scott, people will just smile.
Forget me not today, though I am far away.
Donald Scott, Life and Laughter included contributions from Alan Eyre, Bob Heslop, David Kendrew, Elizabeth McIntosh, John McGuinness, David McNeil, John Myers, Jane Porter, Becky Scott, Holly Scott, Jamie Scott, and Norma Scott. It was produced by Steve Urquhart for BBC Radio Cumbria.